Hey, shalom everybody. So glad you guys are here. Shalom, Thea, Brenda, Shaun. Wow, Brenda up early over there in Georgia. Well done. I mean, Alabama. I always want to say Georgia for some reason. Alabama. Shaun in Oregon, right? You're on the other side. Oh, that's pretty early over there, or late. Anna Marie. Alfred. Dr. DeVera. Elizabeth. Vicky. Alec. Anybody else who's here, give me a shout out, please. It's showing not so many people here. So, Elder Dan told me that he thinks what happens is a lot of times people they log on and they're waiting, and then it times out on YouTube, so it shows they're not there. So I thought, let's try, let's check that theory this week and start on time and see how it goes. 2 a.m. Okay. Sometimes easier to stay up late, right? Great. Yofi. Very welcome, Alfred. So maybe what we'll do while we're waiting on the others to file in is I feel kind of led to open our prayer with a psalm this time. So let me just get that open. This is one we've done before, but when I was just flipping through before, I felt this one come in my mind. So it's either Hashem or it's what I had for lunch, So hopefully it's Hashem guiding. Okay, so let me see. Here we go. All right. And you should still be able to hear me. So let's do Psalm 3. And when I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, sure looks appropriate. Seems appropriate. I won't be going deep, just praying and maybe interpreting it. I better get myself out of the way. Work. There we go. Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David. Bevocho mipnei Avshalom beno, when he fled from the presence of Avshalom his son. Adonai, marabut sarai, O Adonai, how my adversaries have grown in number. Rabim kamim alai, numerous are those who stand against me. Rabim omerim lenafshi, how many, numerous are those who lenafshi, my life. Ein yeshuat tzalo, there is no victory for him. Velohim in God, or from God, Selah. Ve'ata Adonai, but you, Adonai, Magen ba'adi, or Magan ba'adi, you are the suzerain of my life. Kevodi, my glory, umerim roshi, and the one who lifts up my head, or the lifter of my head. Imagine him grabbing your chin and lifting it up. Sorry. Hold on. Please don't send Telegram for a second. I tried to mute the computer, and what happened was instead, it changed views. Sorry. We are. Okay, someone's saying it sounds echoey. Does it sound echoey to you guys? Is there an echo sound? The gain is down. Should be okay. Okay, let me check real quick. Nope, I'm using the device. Hey, but somebody else confirm. Brenda says yes, it's echoing. Echoing. I don't know what the read camera means. It's the same audio that I'm using for the other parts. Okay, give me just a second. Maybe I'll change to like a cheap microphone. Hold on. Let me just test what Dan was saying there. Elder Dan was saying. So, it's a different camera now, but the same microphone. It should be at least. What does it sound like now? Is it still echoey when I'm over here? Okay, thanks for that, Dan. That may be interesting, but it shows the same audio device. How bizarre. Interesting. Okay. Shalom, shalom. Is it echoing now? Now it's okay, Sabina says. Okay, let me go back to that. Okay, thanks for the input, guys. Okay, let's see. Okay, the only audio source activated is the Yeti. I'll just double check his source real quick. Yep, advanced USB device. Okay, and then we'll go back to the other view. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay, thanks. I think Dan's input helped narrow it down. There's another audio input that was active in this source. Is it better now? Is it okay now? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, guys. Thank you for that warning, Thea and Daniel and Tet. You guys, I appreciate that. All right. Solved. All right, maybe we start the psalm again. We're not so far through. Mizmor leDavid bevocho mipnei Avshalom beno. A psalm of David when he fled from before his son Avshalom. Okay. Adonai ma rabu tzarai. Oh Adonai, how numerous are my adversaries. Rabim kamim alai. How many are those who stand against me? Rabim omarim. How many are those? Numerous are those who I, Amar, we learn it as say, but it can mean I too. Who I, lenafshi, my life. Ein Yeshuat tzalo. There is no salvation for him. Velohim, from God. Selah. Ve'ata Adonai. But you, O Adonai. Magen ba'adi. We'll do the other translation this time. We won't change the vowels. If it says Magen ba'adi, it means are a shield exceedingly for me. Whereas if we change it to Magan ba'odi, then it means the suzerain of my life. Kevodi, my glory. Umerim, and the lifter roshi of my head, the one who lifts my head. Koli el Adonai ekra. With my voice unto Adonai ekra I will call. Or I call. V'ya'aneni, and he answers me mehar kodsho, from his holy mountain. Selah. Ani shachavti, I laid down. Va'ishana, and I slept. Hakitzoti, I awoke. Ki Adonai yismacheni, because Adonai supports me. Lo ira merivot am. I will not fear from the myriads, or this can mean the shafts, like the spears of people. Asher saviv, who surround, shatu alai, set against me. K'maAseh, arise, O Adonai. Hoshi'eni, save me. Elohai, oh my God, ki hikita et kol oivai lechi. Oh, that you would smash, that way you would strike, literally smite. That's what usually gets translated, smite. Kol oivai, all of my enemies, lechi, on the chins. Shine reshaim shibarta. Oh, that the teeth of the wicked you would utterly smash to pieces. Ladonai hayeshua. Yeshua, the salvation or the victory belongs l'Adonai, to Adonai. Al amecha, over your people or with your people. V'chatecha is your blessing. Selah. All right. Now Psalm 3. Oh yeah, now we're going to switch to our prepared presentation. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Ani. Okay, Baruch haba, welcome. If you're a visitor, this is the second Torah portion teaching today from congregation Simchat Hashem over here in the Iyim, in the islands, in Philippinim. The myriad of islands spoken of in the Psalms. Our Torah portion today is K'maAseh erets, according to the works of the land of Egypt, right? Or like the works of the land. And this is our 98th or 99th parashah in the ancient Israeli triennial portion. Today we're reading Leviticus 18, that's the Torah portion, and the haftarah is Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2, and we'll do through 12, right? It's usually about 10 verses. All right, let's get started. Leviticus 18, verse 1. Then Adonai spoke El Moshe unto Moshe Lemor, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael, ve'amarta alehem. Daber, speak, El, unto bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, ve'amarta, and you shall say alehem, unto them. That's right, Dr. Dever is mentioning the psalm was put into song. K'maAseh. Yeah, that's right. Although there's another psalm that also says that, Vayafutzu oivecha. Maybe that one. Okay. Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am Adonai, your God. And sometimes in the Torah, God would just say this phrase. Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am the Lord your God. I am Adonai your God. And it's kind of interesting. You always feel like he's hinting about something. And I think we'll see today that what he's hinting about is, I am holy, and so you are expected to be holy as well. It's like the remez of Ani Adonai Elohechem. Be holy. Okay, let's continue. Verse 3. K'maAseh erets Mitzrayim asher yeshavtem bah lo ta'asu. K'maAseh, according to the work of erets Mitzrayim, of the land of Egypt. And even though this is a singular, biblical Hebrew does this sometimes. It will use a singular, but it means like that genre of stuff, right? So it's okay to translate that, the works, even though it's not technically works, plural. According to the works of the erets Mitzrayim, the land of Egypt, and that's where the name of our Torah portion comes from, asher, where, yeshavtem ba, you all, or y'all, dwelt ba, in it. Lo ta'asu, you shall not do. K'maAseh erets Canaan, and like the works of the erets Canaan, the land of Canaan, asher ani mevi etchem, where ani, I, mevi, have brought etchem, you all, or am bringing you all, shama, thither. The sham is there, and the shama is thither. In case you're wondering why the old King Jimmy will say thither, that's why. It's English used to have this word. We don't have it anymore in English. Now we just say, I'm going there. In Victorian English, they'd say, I'm going thither, right? When there's a direction towards something, it's thither. So we've lost that nuance in English today, but it's not lost in the Hebrew. Sham is there, shama is over there, like towards there. Lo ta'asu, v'chukotehem lo teleichu. Lo ta'asu, you shall not do. And, with, or in, chukote, that's the chukot, the statutes, like the behaviors of them, lo, not, telechu, you shall not walk. So in their ways you shall not walk. It's kind of a fancy way of saying that. Like, or in their statutes, in their regulations, the way that they do stuff. Don't borrow from them ways and apply it to you. And I see this all the time when dealing with pastors, for example. Even pastors that are excited about Torah suddenly. I see it all the time. They want to bring their traditions from the Gentile world, and they want to bring it over here, and they don't understand why that's not welcomed. And I understand it's hard for people to let go of their Goyish traditions, but that's not what the kingdom is about. It's not about importing alien morality into what we have, right? We don't need Christian fishes on symbols. We don't need crosses. We don't need one guy told me a while back, He was wanting to help come up with a symbol for the Bnei Israel movement, right? And he says, oh, this is a guy who's Christian and recently was coming to Torah, and he says, hey, how about we have a fish and a menorah, right? And I said, no, please, no. And he says, okay, how about like a cross and a Star of David? I'm like, no, please, no. And he keeps trying to get these like Gentile symbology injected in, right? And I said, look, we don't need to import any of that stuff. The cross, it's a sign of hate to Jews for many hundreds of years, right? The sign of death and destruction. And I don't understand why Christians ever wanted to use the cross. I mean, could you imagine, like, if Yeshua had come today instead of 2,000 years ago, and let's say he got executed in the state of Texas, all right? Instead of the Romans, let's say it was the Texans. Sorry, Texans, I know you would never do it, but, Austin's getting kind of wicked, so you got your little pocket of leftism over there. So let's say in Austin they killed him, all right? And they killed him with the electric chair. Would followers of Messiah walk around with electric chairs, necklaces, an electric chair, earrings, and there'd be a big electric chair on top of the building where people meet? You could see it from far away, the chair. In Brazil, you'd have like a very large electric chair, on top of a mountain that people could see. It's just silly, right? Sean says, yeah, it's not a death instrument. Exactly. Hey, shalom, Zaken Tom. Glad you're here, Achi. I mean, if you think about it, even not from the Jewish perspective, it's a little creepy, right? It's a little creepy. The thing that killed our Lord, that's our symbol, come on. How about like some clouds from when he, on day 40 of the counting of the Omer, when he ascended into heaven, right? I could get behind that, some clouds. Maybe you could just see the feet, like he's already up in the clouds, or just the feet, the sandals about to go, how about like that? How about an empty tomb, like an empty cave and the rock is rolled away? How about that be the symbol, right? The thing that killed him, the thing that was agonizing, and that thing among some denominations, some places, I've visited many places in my day, and I've been to places where they would sing songs like, come bow down before the rugged cross. Like, what? We've seen this, we know this mistake. This has happened to us. We've done this, right? We had Nachushtan, was the Nachash that Moshe made, right? Remember in the wilderness when we're getting bit by snakes? And if you looked at the Nachash that he had made, the serpent he had made, you'd live, right? That was, for some reason, that was the rule that Adonai made. It's kind of like, I don't know, like saving us with irony or something, I have to think that Hashem has a sense of humor sometimes, but something like, or teaching us, really, you like to do those things? Okay, here, this you got to do it this way. And then later, what happens? In Hezekiah's time, the people would bring offerings to it. They were worshiping it. And so this amazing relic, they still had it. Back then, it was an archaeological artifact. Can you imagine? They had it from centuries before. They still had it. And the king had to destroy it. It is time for Gentile Christian brothers and sisters to destroy the cross, okay? You need to get rid of this ridiculous symbol. Okay, it's I know we all like symbols. We all like to say, I'm part of this group, and you got your... we have I've got a fish on my car, or there's a bumper sticker on my business, or, I don't know. It feels kind of chintzy to me, kind of cheap. Brenda says, yes, the cross is morbid. Sean says, creepy. Right? Right? It's not just the Jews don't like this thing. It's morbid. It's bizarre. And you put that on top of your building, then you're under that, It's clinging on to these pagan traditions that people have, where you got to have something that you bow down to, something that is over your head, right? You don't need anything. We don't need that. Some people criticize the Star of David. Star of David's not a religious symbol, okay? Whatever you think about the Star of David, whatever weird anti-Semitic stuff you've seen out there about, it's because this pagan ritual, okay, get out of here with that, first of all. There's no source material to back that up, but it's not a religious symbol. It's a people identity symbol. It's kind of like the American flag, right? Or like the Filipino flag, or wherever you're at, the Dutch flag, or where the Brazilian flag, wherever you're watching from. It's a symbol of a nation. That's the Star of David. Okay, it's not like magical or something. We don't have to have it over us. Traditional Jewish men don't even wear jewelry, so seeing a guy with the Star of David's kind of rare. I mean, if he's religious. Brennan said, I used to have a lot of them until I started reading the Tanakh. Ah, yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, you can see. That's the thing. That's the problem, because people are ignorant of the Tanakh. And so, people come in, they're excited, and they want to change the way that we're doing stuff. I have seen this, many years ago. We had a brilliant synagogue that some friends of mine and we planted. This is maybe 25 years ago or so. 23 something. Anyway, we planted a cool synagogue in Texas, and it was really cool, right? And we had lots of Jewish believers there, and we had also many grafted in, and the level of the synagogue was Orthodox observance in the synagogue. We didn't impose that on anybody who's a member, right? But we said, okay. And we had separate seating for men and women, so there's not distractions, right? And so any Jewish brothers who wanted to come, they wouldn't feel like, we had covers on the light switches. We would go up there on Friday before dark, leave our books up there. Many of us, we moved so we could walk close, so we could walk on Shabbat. And so we'd carry our Bibles or books, whatever we needed, and leave it there Friday. We'd do Kabbalat Shabbat together. Before dark, we'd put these little covers on the light switches so nobody would accidentally flip a switch, a lot of things that, granted, are not really required for Shabbat, but just a higher level so the whole community would be at peace, right? And sometimes Orthodox would visit us from this Sephardic synagogue, and they felt like nothing was so weird, right? Just show them, look, we're not a crazy cult, you can worship with us. We did the Siddur, right? We had a full Torah service, everything, right? Everything. And it was really wonderful. And then what happened? A bunch of Gentiles started coming in. They were attracted. They liked the Hebrew worship and stuff. We did traditional. It was all just a cappella, right? And we'd be there all day. And then at the end, we'd have Havdalah, and then we could go home, So some people, they'd drive their car on Friday, leave it, and then it was there. They could take it home after Shabbat. And wonderful for a handful of years, right? And then a bunch of these Gentiles that came in, they started trying to make it like their churches that they came out of. And there ended up being a schism. One of the founders left with a bunch of the Gentiles who were upset, and it just, what a shame, I'm just really sad. And that was just the beginning of the end. After that, it kind of dwindled down, and then eventually, you take half the people. We had like 70 some odd people, which is pretty good for an American synagogue where people believe in Yeshua. Okay, that's 70 is pretty solid, right? But when half went away, it's like, and this is what the enemy tries to do. He tries to separate those who have the Torah and the testimony of the Messiah, right? We are the number one enemy. And I know every denomination, every sect says, oh, we're the best, we got it right, blah, blah. I admit we probably have a lot of stuff wrong, right? Maybe some of the stuff that we keep, from the Mishnah, maybe we're off on that, right? And maybe sometimes the Hebrew Roots brothers, maybe they got something right that we don't have, right? But it's the separation, it's the division. That's the issue. When I say we, I mean those who, as Revelation puts it, have they Kerosonten and Tolonton Theu. They keep the commandments of God and the martyria Jesus Christo, right? The testimony of Yeshua the Messiah. So that's a large umbrella. I believe that's Hebrew roots. It's Messianic. That might be some of the worldwide Church of God people, although there's a lot of anti-Semitism I've seen over there. But anyway, there, and that might even include some Adventists, right? And Messianics and Bnei Israel, right? And so I think that's a pretty big umbrella, right? For people earnestly, zealously, we might disagree with each other in house debates, but to have the separation, to have the division, because things aren't going your way, we need to be mindful of this and pray against this division, because we are the ones that the beast will make war on. And it seems like things are accelerating in our days towards Armageddon, towards the end. I've never thought that before. I've always been a naysayer, but I really am concerned now that we might be approaching, maybe in my lifetime even, the dealing with the beast and the Babylonian system and all this stuff, right? So let's be mindful of this. You intercessors out there, we've got a lot of intercessors in our Kehal. Really much appreciate you guys. Please target this, that there will not be division in the body. And I'm not aware of any rumblings here at Simchat Hashem now, but the beast, the enemy, it'll probably come, right? Our online ministry has experienced some of this, right? So please be prayerful, be mindful of this. Because it's just so silly to separate about little things, little disagreements, like, you know. Alex says, yes, Rabbi, the early followers of Yeshua in the book of Acts didn't wear a cross. They only devoted themselves to Torah and the apostolic teachings. Amen, brother. Exactly. Very good point. I think it's this K'maAseh erets Mitzrayim and the K'maAseh erets Canaan. This is the spirit of having crosses and having, you have these formulaic Gentile, the Advents, I don't mean Adventists, I mean the Advents, like leading up to Christmas and all of these alien, trees and bunnies and eggs and all this just like alien influence that has been sucked in once the church divorced itself from Israel. And even now we're struggling to reintegrate, to get back to where things were. And what happens? We fight with one another, right? We have division. People divide over ego and stupid stuff. We have to all be above that. Brenda says, I didn't know that the online ministry suffered. Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to, don't want to speak Lashon Hara. Yeah. Sean says, asceticism, true. And a large part of it is people still have an old mindset. They want to import what their churches taught them was the code of conduct and put that on the Bible, instead of letting the Torah speak for itself. The Torah alone determines what is right and wrong. The Messiah didn't add anything to the Torah. He interprets the Torah. He hedges the Torah. He makes it more difficult many times to keep us from really breaking those commandments. But he doesn't abrogate, and he hasn't added to it. He really hasn't. I mean, some people say, well, what about when he says, love each other even how I've loved one another? Well, you could argue he's talking to his direct disciples, the ones who are going to go out and die for him, okay? That's possible. That's one way to interpret that, right? But you can even get this commandment to love one another. This is not so hard to extrapolate from the mitzvot that are given. Now, Shaun says exactly. Yeah, yes. Okay, so let's keep that in mind kind of as the backdrop of today's discussion. And I hope you'll all be mindful of it and prayerful of it, and just may shalom. There's a beautiful prayer. We say he who makes peace in the high places, often translated the heavenlies. May he also make peace for us and for all of Israel. Right? All of Israel. Okay. To be clear, Brenda, the growth of the online ministry has not suffered. Baruch Hashem, bli ayin hara, we're still growing about 10% every half a month, expanding, right? So please keep that in prayer. Keep that hasn't suffered, yeah. But it's been a hit to the online community, though. Yeah. So, all right. Okay, verse 4. Et mishpatai ta'asu vet chukotai tishmeru lalechet bahem ani Adonai Elohechem et mishpatai. So here we have the et. Usually this comes after the verb, right? We have verb and then subject, or sometimes an indirect object squeezes in there, and then we usually have et if it's a definite object, and then we have the object, right? When you have literary form like here in the Torah and you move the et in front of the verb, this in Hebrew syntax expresses emphasis. So it's kind of like Moshe is writing, well, Hashem is saying, et mishpatai ta'asu ve'et chukotai tishmeru. See, look, we have object, verb. Object, verb. It's in the reverse order of normal Hebrew syntax. That is to express emphasis. So it's kind of like he's yelling at us, right? Or it's in bold or italics, however you want to do this. So my mishpatim, my judgments, my rules. Here's my little note on it. My rules, Ta'asu, you shall do. Not the Ma'aseh Mitzrayim, not the ways of the Egyptians, not the Ma'aseh Canaanim, not the way of the Canaanites, not the Ma'aseh Ashkenaz, not the way of the Germans, right? Not the. By the way, I don't mean Ashkenazi Jews. Okay, we're not Germans, by the way. By the way, this is something that keeps popping up in the chat. I keep seeing some anti-Semitic stuff creeping its head in there about how Jews aren't really Jews, or been seeing all this a lot. It's like the spirit of anti-Semitism is really raising. And look, we do not segregate among native-born or grafted in. Ultimately, we're all grafted in. You go back to Abraham or whatever, right? Hashem has created a people, and He's called those whom He will to join that people. Okay, but these silly claims that Jews today are not really from ancient Israel, that were like Edomites or were from the Khazars. These are just foolish old theories that might have been fine and dandy before DNA came about. But now we have DNA testing. And for example, Ashkenaz, very few people converted to Ashkenazim. So the Ashkenazim, we're usually the ones who get picked on because we're whiter, right? But we had the least converts, you see, because we didn't allow conversion for the sake of marriage. You couldn't convert just to get married. That is, whereas the Sephardim and some of the other groups, they did, right? So the DNA testing for like Ashkenazim is very, very interesting, and they've tied it to, there's similarities with Arabs because also Middle Easterners, right? And then all the Jews, all the modern Jews today, we all have Levites among us. So how would this happen if we're from some like mass conversion in Edom or something? That we all happen to have Levites with us. And they have distinct DNA tests for the Levites. I remember years ago, when I would go to a Jewish arts festival. Sometimes we have these in the States and various cities, and it's kind of cool. There's all kinds of nice Hebrew stuff and nice artwork, and some arts and crafts and music, and it's good kosher food. And although when there was too many people, I wouldn't go because just in case Allahu Akbar shows up, But anyway, so like we'd go there, and they had these tests. Hey, find out if you've got Levite ancestry. You take a DNA test, and then they'd mail you later the results, right? So if you have a mass conversion, you don't get Levites. You understand? And all the Jewish groups today, we all have Levites. The Falashan Ethiopian Jews have Levites. The Sephardim, the Spanish Jews have Levites. The Ashkenazim, the European Jews, we have Levites. The Mizrahis from Persia, they have Levites. How would that happen? Within our midst, there's a distinct people, you know what I mean? A distinct tribe. Only the Georgian Jews, and by the way, I'm not picking on you if you're a Jew in Georgia, only the Georgian Jews don't have Levites, so probably that's the group that's from Khazar. We'll just turn the persecution on them. No, but still brothers, right? If they've joined Israel, they joined Israel. That's it. It only takes even 3 generations, and then you can even marry priests. So just enough of this. Jews aren't the real Jews. It's really some hidden, Mexican over there. By the way, if you're Mexican, love you. It's not against you. I'm just saying there's been like a kind of like a weird. It started with the British Israelites, right? That's where this racism first started. There was a guy who thought that there were a lot of words in English that were similar to Hebrew, and so he reasoned then that the English people were a tribe from Israel. And it just turns out that modern scholars, every modern scholar who has investigated his work, has categorized these similarities as what's called an accident in linguistics. You only got so many sounds to make. You're going to have some words that sound similar. Right? And I would go beyond that. I'd say, yeah, every language is going to have some Hebrew because Hebrew is the first language. So you can find this in any language. You're going to find similarities in some words that, we have sometimes they're the opposite, cognates or whatever. It's just going to happen. But and so he reasoned that they were the real Jews. But or a tribe. He wasn't an anti-Semite. He said the Jews are also Jews. Nobody at that time thought that Jews weren't really Jews because why would we keep being persecuted, traveling around, being hated by the Europeans? I mean, what's the point? Where's the benefit to like fake and say we're the real ones? While nobody else is claiming the status, right? And then what happens? Now the modern British Israelites, they say that we're fakers. They buy into the whole Khazar theory, the Edomites. I don't really care. It's just an evidence of the time that we live in that we have rising anti-Semitism again. And it's among those who say they are Jews but are not, which is really quite amazing in Revelation, right? I don't mean if you're a grafted in person. I'm not talking about you. You are an Israeli. You are a B'nai. You are a Bat or a Ben Yisrael. Okay, a son or a daughter or son of Israel. Okay, I'm talking about people who say they're the actual true lineage, and those of us who are actually Israelis, that we're liars, right? That we're fakers. That just it used to really bother me. It doesn't bother me that much anymore. Now it's just like, okay, anti-Semitism, right? And let's just, so if you see it, just kind of, maybe you can judge the person who's saying that, like how much you want to spend time with them based on if they're embracing these anti-Semitic ideas. All right, and that's really what we've got. The DNA on our side. We have the linguistics on our side. Who maintained Hebrew for millennia? We did. Okay, we're the real deal. Nobody. These other groups now claim, oh, we're the real Hebrews. Blah blah. It's like, okay, where's your Hebrew? Okay, I've never met one who knows Hebrew at all. They can sometimes read, or sometimes they're into the paleo witchcraft, paleo symbols and stuff. None of them even know Hebrew at all. Okay, where's your nation? Where has God brought you back from all corners of the earth into a nation? We see these prophecies being fulfilled. It's just, we've got prophecy, we've got DNA testing, we've got linguistics. We are a Middle Eastern people when you compare genome, the haplogroups with other, like Druze and Arabs and these other. Come on, enough with the silliness. Dr. Everett says Herbert Armstrong and British Israelism. That's right. He's the one who wrote the book. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. Now that you say it right on, it catches. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's the one who wrote the book based on the languages of, and he himself wasn't an anti-Semite. It's only in recent decades that this group has gone full-blown anti-Semitic, and they got copied by the Black Israelites. The Black Israelites basically copied the same theology, didn't even come up with it for themselves. They say, hey, those British Israelites, I like that idea, but instead of English, it's actually African Americans, right? And then that expands to any dark people. So, like, if you're from the South America, it's all, there's people out there that say it's based on the tone of your skin. Like, if your skin is darker, then you're a true Israeli, which is funny because the Bible talks about, like, can the Ethiopian change the color of his skin? It's obvious that the people write, or the word that they had even for Arab, it's from the word that means evening, right? Erev, and the word that we use for a raven, right? So there's clearly some kind of, again, it doesn't matter. I almost hate to bring this up because it really doesn't matter, but just, I'm noticing these things are becoming popular even among Torah keepers. And some of it bleeds over. And it's just, really? Hasn't the Jewish people suffered enough? Now the small bit who actually believe in the Messiah, now you're going to start saying we're not real? We get it from both ends. Our people don't like us because we believe in the Messiah. And now those that we've joined are going to say, well, we're not the real deal. It's like, come on, enough already, please. Have some sensitivity and have some brains, really, okay? Brendan says, now I have heard the scattered northern kingdom can be traced across Europe. Who knows? Yeah, who knows with the lost tribes? I never had a problem with when I read about the early British Israelism, or actually somebody told me about it and then I read a little bit. Okay, who knows? Maybe. Who's to say, no, you can't possibly be from a lost tribe, Mr. UK, or maybe. Who knows? Who could say, right? I used to think when I lived in Switzerland that maybe they were a lost tribe because they've had peace for 500 years. They're very wealthy. There's like no venomous snakes in the entire country. There's no poisonous spiders. I remember when I was there, like a bear was seen in some mountain or whatever, and every hunter went out, oh my gosh, there's a bear. So there's no, what we'd say, chayot ra'ot, there's no like wild animals that hurt people. It's just, it's pristine water. You're in Zurich and you look down at the water, you can see the bottom, it's so clear. It's just like really, really blessed. I thought maybe it's like, who knows, one of these tribes. But to try to unseat us, that's when it kind of becomes satanic. And I think that's when what Revelation talks about it, when it says those who say they are Jews but are not, but are actually the assembly of Satan, right? It's like, because a lot of those groups today can be violent towards the gospel. They can be violent towards people who don't embrace their way of thinking. Instead of using Jewish reasoning, right, and using the mind, loving God with all their mind, instead they like insult one another in like these kind of wrap-off debates. And they just... It's not from Hashem. It's not from Hashem, So, but it says, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, Switzerland's pretty incredible. The education system, the teachers, they all make six figures. It's like, so the public schools are, and I saw a lot of pro-Israel stuff when I was there. It was so cute. Like, I'd see these things that the school kids had made, God bless Israel, with stars of David's all over the wall and stuff like that. It's like, so there's kind of like a spirit of comedy. They're about the same size as Israel, right? Same population, very similar population. They're armed to the teeth. Everyone has to serve in the army, just like in Israel. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying, I used to think maybe these guys... I remember my roommate in Switzerland... Sorry, I'll get back to the text in a sec. My roommate in Switzerland, I remember seeing hanging behind the door, on the wall behind the door to our kitchen, was a full automatic weapon, right? Just like hanging there. And you never hear of shot people, mowing down schools in Switzerland or anything like this. And it turns out, he explained, he says, everyone who served in the military, they have to have a military issued weapon at home, right? And they have a clip. They got a clip, right? Because you have to have a clip so you can make it to the depot if there's an invader, right? So everyone serves in the military, right? And then all these guys, they got guns at home. But there's not this spirit of malice and like craziness and, Brother Tony has an interesting thing he shared with me about this, about changing earth magnetism that's messing people up. I won't go into that. Maybe he shared that with you or not. If not, ask him about it. But it seems like they're protected over there, so. Yeah, so if we're looking for peoples who might be lost tribes, why don't we look at like blessings, like peace being upon them. They're friendly to Israel, not antagonistic to us. We are fakers and all this stuff and controlling the world banks and all these crazy theories, So, all right, back to the Torah. Sorry, a little sidetrack there. But I hope that makes it interesting. Okay. And you shall do instead my mishpatim and my chukot, right? Tishmaru, you shall safeguard. Lalechet, walking by him in them. Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am Adonai, your God. Now the Midrash Tanchuma teaches regarding the chukim that various chukim, given without a reason, like we're not given the reason, are what the Yetzer Hara causes the nations to contend with, to go against, right? Like keeping kosher, right? They don't want to keep kosher. The Gentile Christians don't want to keep kosher. I remember one time I was at, I think it was Sam's Club, either Sam's Club or Costco. Pretty sure it was Sam's Club. Right. Costco had Hebrew Nationals, and Sam's Club had Best Kosher. That's what it is, I remember. So they had kosher dogs you could buy there, right? Kosher hot dogs. And I remember I was going to get some, and I'm waiting in line. I'm waiting behind this old couple. They got the freezer door open, and the old man is holding one, and the grandmother, she like kind of slaps us, and she says, "Don't get those. Those are kosher." And he's like, oh, he puts it back like, oh my gosh, we almost bought kosher. I'm just like, all right, wo ist dein Führer? Ist das etwas schrecklich? Vielleicht du willst die kosher Fleisch essen? Just like, what in the world? You're scared? I understand not thinking you have to keep kosher, but like, you pull your hand away from it, like, oh, the Jews, I touch the Jew stuff, I prefer more bugs in my meat. I mean, even if you're going to eat meat, wouldn't you prefer that there's all the bug traps and stuff that we put in the kosher factories and stuff, Yeah, just crazy. All right. So according to Tanchuma, this is a good midrash. We have some very, 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 very old midrashim, and this is one of them, right? Or collections of midrashes. And so pretty well trusted. If you're curious in studying some very trusted midrashim, you could do Midrash Tanchuma. You could read Bereshit Rabbah, Genesis Rabbah. By the way, all the Rabbahs are not the same, right? You get Exodus Rabbah. That's not the same as Genesis Rabbah. It's a big collection, the Rabbah. It spans the whole Torah and everything. But Vayikra Rabbah and all this stuff. But the one that's really, really got a lot of oomph within Judaism is Bereshit Rabbah. Beta Israel, the Philostian Jews, the Ethiopian Jews, they even count it as scripture, right? So it's a very, very high level. So those are maybe some things, if you want to get into the Midrash, maybe it might be good to read. Maybe don't jump just straight into Talmud, but start reading the Midrashim. That's some pretty nice stuff. So anyway, so this one says that the Mishpat, that the Chukot or Chukim, that these are what the nations contend with, right? And we see it today. The Christian brothers and sisters, of course, they're okay with not, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't murder, but, really, I shouldn't eat pork? That's for the Jews only, or that's dead, or whatever. All right, so I think the Midrash is right there. I like that. Brendan says, B'nai Yisrael, Orthodox followers of Messiah. Beautiful. I like that little extra snippet on the end. That's good. All right, verse 5. ושמעתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, אשר יעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם, אני Adonai. And then we have the Samech telling us there's some white space after this. This is like the end of a quote-unquote pericope, right? Like a little thought chunk. So, and there's the Ani Adonai reminding us of holiness, the remez. If we take the Pardes model, the remez hint about it. Ushmartem, and you all shall safeguard them. What should we safeguard? Et chukotai, my statutes. Vet mishpatai, and my judgments or my stipulations. Asher, which ya'aseh otam. Ha'adam, okay, which the man, the Adam, really the person, the human, who will do them, v'chai shall live by him in them or with them. And then we give this sobering thought. This is so much like, the Psalms. There's a lot of parallels with Psalms and the Torah, right? We got 5 books of Psalms, 5 books of Torah, even though you don't see that in the canonized versions. In Judaism, it's 5 books, right? Okay. And there's like the Psalms will say, sometimes when they hit you with a very deep thought, it'll say Selah. And nobody really knows what that means, right? Selah. And here we have Ani Adonai, or Ani Adonai Elohechem. And I think it's kind of like, it feels to me as, again, not pounding my shoulder, but just so you can understand there's a reason I'm saying these things. As someone who's fluent in Torah Hebrew, like I don't have to think in English when I'm reading the Torah, okay? So when I read that, it feels to me, it's got that same feeling as Selah, right? So even though we're saying before, the deeper meaning might be saying, I am holy, right? Or be holy. It's like reminding of us of that. Another place, a Gezer Shav, another place where he says that. But the feeling to me, right, as a fluent Torah Hebrew reader, is it feels like the Psalm Selah. I think there's something spiritually connecting those things here. So my regulations, my stipulations, the person who does it will live by means of them or in them. Selah, or Ani Adonai. Now, curiously, Ha'adam is used here. Previous verses were using Ish, right? We had Ish last week in Leviticus 17, right? Some meaning someone or anyone, or Nefesh meaning a soul, right, who does it, or a throat that eats, etc. And the next section after the Satum, sorry, that's what this Samach is called, it's a Satum. It begins in turn with Ish. Now, Dr. Jacob Milgram argues that the change from second to third person here and the term Ha'adam is all inclusive, right? The Ger is also included in Ha'adam. It's like a human being, right? As well as the Israelite. So even pre-conversion, even before joining Israel, this applied to the Ger, which also makes sense why Midrash Tanchuma was tying the Chukim. It thought at this section to make point that the Chukim, the Chukot, that this is even difficult for the Gentiles, but some of it they got to do, even if they haven't joined Israel. But they contend against it. They don't want to. The Ger, the foreigner, is included as well as the Israelite. Milgram further points out that the rabbis observe the non-Jew who observes the Torah is like the high priest, right? So, this is kind of a nice way to share with someone who maybe has their shields up against Torah, right? Maybe you have a Christian friend or a Christian brother or sister, or family member by blood, and they got their shields up. They don't want to hear anything about Torah. Instead of putting it on them like you must do this, you could say, hey, but what about this idea, this Jewish concept that a Gentile who keeps the Torah is like the high priest. The level of holiness is just up there, right? What about that? And this is from the Sifra, which is also another good midrashic, although kind of deep. I wouldn't recommend that one first. Rashi loved this one. He's always quoting from the Sifra. Even sometimes he forgets to mention it's in the Sifra. Okay, so that's where you can find it. Sifra Acharei 13:12. And also Milgram making this argument. Okay, after the Satum, here we are in verse 6. Hold on, I need a drink. So here, we finished the Satum. We had Ha'adam. Now we go to Ish. Ish, el kol she'er besaro, lo tikravu legalot erva, ani Adonai Selah. Ish, anyone or someone, el kol she'er besaro, unto kol, any of the she'er, which is like the meat, besaro, of his flesh, okay? So by itself, she'er is meat. Meat, we see like food, right? It can mean. We see this used in the commandment that says, like, if a man takes another wife, he can't reduce the she'er that is given to his first wife, right? You can't reduce like her budget for food, okay? But when you see these two words together, the she'er besaro, she'er can also mean like relative, right? It's your meat. We're from the same meat. It's kind of like, I guess it's like in American English, we talk about, hey, or especially in the South, I don't know if the Yankees do this, but we talk about like, he's my blood, or that's my blood. I can't cut them off. That's my blood, right? Or I got to help him. He's my blood. Their blood, right? Or their kin, right? But that's kind of what she'er is like. In biblical Hebrew, instead of saying he's my blood, we say he's my meat. Okay? So that to kind of help you understand what's happening in the Hebrew there. Besaro, the basar, the flesh of him. Lo tikruvu, he shall not approach it. Lo galot, legalot, to uncover. That's from gala, the hay went away. Erva, nakedness. So this effectively provides a blanket prohibition for sexual relations with your own family members. Okay. Okay. Ani Adonai. Where the midrash. No, go back. I pressed the wrong thing. Okay. The Midrash Vaikra Rabbah, that's Leviticus Rabbah, says wherever one finds safeguards of chastity, there one finds holiness. Right? So again, this idea that Ani Adonai, Selah, or he's hinting about being holy. Sorry, I have a kitty here who's kind of invading the desktop. All right, Ziggy, say hi to everybody. All right, down you go. Okay, verse 7. Ervat avicha, vervat imecha lo tegale. The nakedness of your father and the ervat imecha and the nakedness of your mother, lo tegale, you shall not uncover. See, there it is, gala. This same word, gala, can be used for, like, to reveal, like to uncover the eyes, like revelation, right? Okay. He lo tegale, it you shall not uncover, ervata. Pardon me. Her nakedness. Okay. Ziggy ben Ziggy. Here we have another. Oops, Satum, I meant to put a space here. I think I was trying to cram the Hebrew in. Verse 8. Ervat eshet avicha lo tegale. The nakedness of your father's wife you shall not uncover. Ervat avicha he. The nakedness of your father, she is. Okay? And the reason it doesn't just, look, we had your mother up above. Well, because it's a polygamous society, right? So they have to specify, the Torah is specifying, not just your mother, any of your father's wives, right? That counts as his flesh. Because you could see someone reasoning, well, I don't have any blood from her, any meat from her. It doesn't matter. She belongs to the father. Not allowed when he's alive or when he's dead. Not allowed. Zaken Tom says, Rabbi, Apostle Paul rebuked the man in 1 Corinthians 5:1 that he was immoral with his stepmother. Exactly. Nice. Very good connection. Thank you for sharing that, Tom. That's 1 Corinthians 5:1 over in the chat. Shopwise had a sale on import teas like half off, so I'm trying all these different flavors now. All right, verse 9. Ervat achotecha vat avicha vat imecha moledet bait o moledet chutz lo tegale ervatecha. Pardon me, ervatan. I was daydreaming a little bit. Brenda says, so they liked older women, or would the stepmother be young? You know, there could be connections like that. Yeah, she could be young, right? You know, the father could have married an 18-year-old or something. A lot of people back then, Brenda, were married to their own aunties. And the aunties sometimes were younger than them, right? It just, you know, the kind of the way that society was back then as far as ages, and so it was very different than it is today, right? Especially certain taboos in the West, they didn't exist, right? Which is also part of why Hashem had to put up some boundaries, right? Like, you can't marry your auntie. We're going to find that in today's Torah portion. But for a while, people did, right? Tet says the emphasis on the flesh describes the sinful nature, lust of the flesh. That's a good point, Tet. Yeah. Tom says, example also with Reuben and Bilhah. Yes, horrible. With the Pilagesh, we'll just say Pilagesh. I don't like the term concubine. The Pilagesh, yep, of his father. Although the Midrash says he didn't really sleep with her, that he just moved her bed around, like he moved her bed to the father's tent so that the father would sleep with her now that the other one was gone. Anyway, I'm not sure that Midrash is correct. So the nakedness of your sister, achotcha. So I have this book called The Genesis Question, Scientific Advances in the Accuracy of Genesis, by a famous American physicist, Hugh Ross. He was an atheist and very strong physicist at Caltech. Any of you who watch The Big Bang Theory, that's where those guys are at, you know. So it's one of America's great science and engineering universities. And anyway, he became convinced by the evidence that the Bible was real. And he wrote this book. And in the book, he points out that the timing for these incest prohibitions, like when they come into being, makes perfect sense from a biological perspective. Avram Avinu was married to his own sister. Biologically, the risks of serious defects do not present until after the first several dozen generations. Isn't that interesting? Before I read that in his book, I'd never known that. I thought that, you know, brothers and sisters, kids are going to be cross-eyed, like right away, right? You know, but he says, no, it's like many generations before those types of defects. Now, granted, he's not a biologist, but, you know, famous physicists should be able to understand biology. Biology is not a hard science after all. We call it a soft science. Okay, don't get mad at me, the biologists out there. Just saying. Those who study physics and chemistry consider biology a quote-unquote one of the soft sciences, because you don't have to be as strong in math and all that stuff. All right, enough. I could feel the future comments on YouTube. Some geneticists are going to be getting mad. But you know it's true. It's called the soft sciences, okay? Don't blame me. Don't blame the messenger. Okay. Tet says the lust removes inhibitions for family. Right. Sean says, Tet, I don't think so. The word sha'ar is used of brothers, sisters, wives, etc. Okay, I'll let that happen over there. Okay, vat avicha, the daughter of your father, or vat imecha, the daughter of your mother. So why do we have this comment? Again, since the Torah permits polygamous unions, it is necessary to make clear it makes no difference if she's a half-sister on either side. She is forbidden sexually. Moledet, born, bayit, in the house. Oftentimes the word bayit, if you put a bait in front of it, it just kind of absorbs the bait. So bayit can actually mean bebayit, babayit, in the house. Or moledet, born, chutz, outside. Lo tegale evatan, you shall not uncover their nakedness. So the Talmud, Tractate Yevamot, teaches us, some claim moledet chutz, born outside, refers to a situation where one's mother was raped or seduced by a stranger and birthed a daughter as a result, like outside the tent. Okay, so Chizkuni and the Chorshor, they're the ones with this opinion that that's what it means. There is an opinion in the Talmud, however, which interprets moledet chutz, born outside, to mean the mother of the sister in question is forbidden in marriage to the father, i.e. a Canaanite. Okay, so that's Talmud Tractate Yevamot 23a, and also the Mikrot Gedolot if you want to find the Chizkuni and the Chorshor comments. Tet says, like near of kin, yeah, it's used that way, or it can just mean meat, right? I mean, if you're talking about food, it can be like rations and such. Verse 11. Ervat badei shet avicha moledet avicha achotecha hi lo tegale ervata. The nakedness of the daughter of the wife of your father, born of your father, your sister she is. It's like Yoda, right? Do not uncover her nakedness. And then we have satum, so there's a big white space. Verse 12. Ervat achot avicha lo tegale she'er avicha hi. The nakedness of the sister of your father, so this is the auntie on the father's side. Lo tegale, you shall not uncover. She'er avicha, kin, or like meat of your father is he, is she. So this one was a really hard one for the Israelites to stomach, because when they came out of Egypt, in our tradition, many were married to their aunties, right? And it didn't mean they had to divorce. It just meant from now on, don't do that, right? You're going to break up families and stuff? Of course not. But imagine being told what you did was kind of creepy, right? So we don't allow that anymore. Sean says the word near of kin gets translated as flesh. Okay, good. Okay, nice talk over there, guys. Brenda says, didn't the book of Joshua make Sarah Abraham's niece? I don't remember if Joshua does that or not. Maybe Someone from alcohol who enjoys Yasher can comment on that. I have read it, but I don't remember. I don't remember that part. But Yasher is kind of suspect as Midrash goes, even though it's got some nice stuff in there. Like just it's late Hebrew. It's like medieval rabbinical Hebrew instead of, post-biblical Hebrew, etc. Yeah. Okay, verse 13. But that's interesting to find out that tradition's there. If anybody knows, please chime in the chat. I'd like to learn that. Ervat achot imecha lo tegale ki she'er imecha hi. The nakedness of the the sister of your mother. So now this is your other auntie. In case the guy's thinking, okay, but the auntie that I have the hots for is my mother's sister. Okay? In Hebrew, they're like different terms, right? They're like very, very specific on who the people are, right? Father-in-law on the mother's side, father-in-law on the wife's side, pardon me, husband's side, wife's side, auntie on the father's side, auntie on the mother's side, wife of the father, all this stuff, father's daughter, mother's daughter, father's wife's daughter, right? It's just like all this stuff. Neither one's allowed, okay? You should not uncover. Ki she'eri mecha, because kin of your mother is she, if we translate like this. Verse 14, Ervat achi avicha lo tegale, the nakedness of the brother of your father, you shall not uncover. Wait, hold on. Yeah, okay. So basically it's telling the girls they can't marry their uncles either, okay? El ishtoho lo tikahav dodatecha hi. Ervat achi avicha. Okay, we did that. The nakedness of your father's brother. Lo tigale, you shall not uncover. El ishto. Oh, okay, I get it. Sorry, I just read the first thing. I thought maybe it's for women, but then I was thinking, but why is it the masculine? Now I get it. We need to read the rest. Unto his wife. So that's the nakedness of your father's brother. You can't marry your uncle's wife even. All right? Lo tikrav, you shall not draw near. Do datecha, she is your auntie. Okay? Satum. So we have another section. Alan says Noah's son's children, if they intermarried, would be near kin, right? But we didn't have this commandment yet, right? We didn't have the commandment yet. And, of course, but they also had their wives with them too, right? So, but yeah, you're right. It's still going to be first cousins marrying. Ervat kalatecha lo tegale, the nakedness of your daughter-in-law, lo tegale, you shall not uncover. Eshet bincha hi. Lo tegale ervataha. Your son's wife she is. Do not uncover her nakedness. Okay? So your daughter-in-law. Now this reminds me of something interesting. I'm just going to take a shot at the Quran real quick. The alleged Prophet Muhammad violated this prohibition by taking his adopted son's wife as his own. His own. Yep. So in Islam, there is just your weekly inoculation against Islam. There is a accepted teaching, right? Accepted, right? Meaning all the sects believe in this, that Muhammad went to see Zainab, the wife of his son, and it goes on to take up how she was beautiful, and she was white, and she was fat, all the things people loved back then, right? And Muhammad says out loud, the son isn't there, he's in his house, he's only allowed because they're kin, right? It's his own son. And he says, praise be to Allah who made my heart flip for you, right? So he flirts with the lady, and then he leaves, and then the son comes home, and the lady tells the son about it, and the son goes to his father, and he says, oh, I hate my wife, that one, she hurts my feelings, I'm going to divorce her, please take her, And in the end, Muhammad does take her, right? And then adoption becomes illegal in Islam after that. So he's not my real son, probably a reaction to criticism. So now, before that, the Arabs used to adopt, right? The pagan Arabs, they would adopt, but now in Islam, you can't take the father's name if you're an adopted child anymore, right? Because, Muhammad had to have that nice white gal he liked. Brenda says, Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Avram. Ooh, very nice. Thank you. Sharon's laughing at that. Not what Brenda said, what I said. Tet says, were the tribes made to comply with this hard commandment at once? No. It's the next generation, right? The next set of marriages. From then on, they weren't allowed to do it. Yeah, it's a good question. Yep. Integration. Kind of like when someone comes to Torah, we don't put it all on them all at once, right? We just get them Sabbath-minded first, right? And then after they're keeping the Sabbath for a while, then maybe we start introducing, holidays, and they're keeping the holidays. Then we introduce kosher, right? Kashrut, right? And some other, we start implementing, maybe then they want to do tzitzit, right? They start changing their garb. You hit somebody with it all at once, the flesh wants to rebel. It's too much of a shock to the system, right? You got to drain the poison out, drain the addictions out, bit by bit. Okay. Verse 16. The nakedness of your brother's wife, lo tegale, don't uncover. The nakedness of your brother, she is, right? So this helps a lot in interpreting what happened with Noach, right? After, he basically either got raped by his son or he got castrated. There's different opinions on that. What it means, or something, it was his wife that got raped, right? Because when you talk about Noah's nakedness, that doesn't just mean him, it means his wife, right? And we can see this very clearly in the Torah here, that the way this term is used, right? So that kind of helps to interpret some things. If the wife was the one that got raped, then you can understand why the grandson gets cursed, right? Because it's trying to mess up who will be the paterfamilias of the new world, right? I'm the paterfamilias. Okay. Sorry, that's a quote from "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Yep, Shawn agrees. How you guys doing? We're an hour in. Take a stretch. Slap yourself on the face. Slap your family members on the face. Maybe don't. Wait till after Shabbat for that. Stretch. Stand up if you need to. If you need to run and get a cup of coffee, that's okay. I don't mind. Or drink some tea or something. I want you to focus. We'll take a 3-minute. I'll just sit here for a second. So if you guys need to do something, need to use a bathroom or something like that. Let me check the time. There we go. Okay. I like that laughing fish or whale. Shown. Where'd Ziggy go? Oh, he's napping on the floor. He's a kid cat. He's like, So this kitten with a batch of others, he seemed to like us when we petted him, and so did his sibling, right? Anyway, the mother carried them over a big wall that's taller than I am. And he's a little kid. We thought, okay, we really want him, but we thought we're not going to take him from his mother, right? And we decided if he comes back to us, then we'll keep him. And when he was little, he climbed over this big wall, came back, and meow, really wanted. So he's ours. We thought, okay, that's the sign. He's supposed to be ours. And he's so cool. He follows me around everywhere and starts purring if we're in a room alone, like there's no other cats around. He's purring so loudly. He's not yet an adult, but. Corky says, didn't all the old died in the wilderness? So perhaps the new generation who arrived in the promised land obeyed these chapter 18 laws. That is a very interesting point, Corky. In fact, some of the famous Mefshorim, the famous commenters, the rabbis, they think that some of the laws that we're reading about here, that it's only for inside the land, right? Well, specifically, okay, I don't want you to think there's anything weird. Specifically, one of the laws they're talking about is that a man can't marry sisters. He can't take his sisters, right? 2 sisters. Not his sisters, but he can't marry a girl and her sister, right? To uncover both the nakedness in their lifetime, right? So some rabbis say you can't marry the sister of your wife unless she dies. If your wife dies, then you can marry her sister, right? But some of the sages, they believe that it just meant outside the land of Israel. And their reasoning is exactly what Corky mentioned there, because these commandments seem to be staged to take effect when the new generation went into the land of Israel, so the land wouldn't be polluted, right? So the people married to their aunties and stuff, it's not going to affect the land of Egypt. I mean, the land of Israel, land of Egypt. So yeah, very interesting you came up with that point. So some of the rabbis definitely agree with you on that. Okay, 1 more minute. And then we'll start up again. By the way, we can do the live chat. That's fine right now. I just wanted to give people a chance to, it can be brutal, a 2-hour-long lesson if you're not used to it. Zaken Tom says, Rabbi, Herodias, the granddaughter of Herod the Great, took wife by Herod Antipas, his niece. Indeed, John the Baptist rebuked them sharply. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny they have similar names, right? Herodia. That was like a real popular name back then. Yeah, he was violating the Torah, right? Violating the Torah. And Yochanan was a prophet of God, and he indeed gave the smackdown for that with the spirit of Elijah on him. All right, there, your 3 minutes are up. Sit down and listen. Just kidding. Leviticus 18, verse 17. Ervati shaha uvita lo tegale. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. The nakedness of a woman and her daughter, bita lo tegale. You shall not uncover, right? So you can't marry a woman and her daughter. Et bat bena, et bat bita lo tika. Something happened. Tone went away. Tikach lo galot ervatah sha'ara hena zimahi. Okay. Et bat bena, the daughter of her daughter, and bat bita. Oh, I'm sorry, bat bina, the daughter of her son, and the daughter of her daughter. Lo tikach. So you don't take her grandkids either, okay? None of these weird perversions, grandma, and you're going to marry the grandchild also. Lo tikach, you shall not marry. Literally, lo tikach from lakach, you shall not take, right? That's just how you say marry in Hebrew. You take. Did you take a woman? I took her. Legalot, to uncover, ervata, her nakedness. Sha'ara heina zimahi. So I have this highlighted because I want to talk about different ways to interpret the pointing. So sha'ara, it's like kin, a female kin. Heina, they are. Zima, it's like a wicked device, a wicked imagination. It is. Okay. Now this is a comment from my unpublished book. The Masoretic text, sha'ara, a female relative, is out of place here. And it only occurs one time in the entire corpus of the Hebrew Bible, right? So it's a little suspect already. The fact that a word that's nowhere else in the entire Hebrew Bible is here, right? So we always kind of want to look at that a little, we scrutinize a little bit. They're called hapax legamemna, right? Words that are like that. Now the Septuagint interprets this as oikaiai, female members of a household. But the BHS, the Bibli Hebräische Stuttgartensia, it's the German Bible Society produced that, corrects the pointing to she'erah with a dot there, right? Now that's different. If it's got the dot there, that means her she'er, her kin. This yields she is her female relative instead of they are a female relative. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So just, we have these kind of disputes and scholarly questions about the text. Shaun says, wasn't the new generation booted out because of idolatry and the 10 spies? Well, not booted out. They didn't get to go in, right? The spies got booted out, but the rest didn't even get to go in, right? I mean, they tried to invade, but yeah, I guess you're right. You could call that booted out, but they never settled, right? Yes, that's true. Tet says the family of Herod was known for idolatry, incest, and murder. Yeah, it is a real pagan, wicked. Now, he was an Edomite, actually, right? It's so funny. The New Testament even makes such a difference between the Jews, the Judaioi, right, in the Greek, the Judeans, and Herod and his ilk, right? So he's from the people that were forced to convert, right? It's a military forced conversion. Jews had forced the Edomites to convert. Tom says, Rabbi, what's the meaning of chalitza? Okay, so chalitza is a procedure. So we have this commandment in the Torah called Yabama, right, or Yabamot, which means if your brother dies and he hasn't had a male child yet, right, he hasn't had a son yet, then you're supposed to marry his wife. You take her as another wife, okay? And then the first son that she has gets his name, right? So that his name will not be cut off from the earth. for inheritance rights, all that kind of stuff. And then any other children she has are yours after your name, right? Just kind of a weird thing we don't really practice anymore. I think there are a few groups that they do this, but the Torah also gives a command. It also gives a way to reject this, right? If the guy doesn't want to take her, right, doesn't want to marry, refuses, maybe he just hates her, who knows, maybe she was a terrible relative, I don't know. And then the procedure, if he refuses to accept her, it's called chalitza. Chalatz is to strip, right? To strip or to tear away, like to tear, like you have Velcro, right? If they had Velcro in ancient Israel, Velcro made by NASA, so stuff doesn't float away, right, on the space shuttle. But if they had Velcro and you rip the Velcro off, that would be chalatz. You're chalatzing it, right? You're ripping it away. So chalitza is he takes off his sandal, his shoe, he chalatzes it, right? And he says, I don't want to take this woman, blah, 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 blah. And then she spits in his face or on the ground. There's different ways to understand this. And the text says, and she says, such should be done to one who refuses to raise up his brother's house. Okay? So that's what chalitza is. Today we just call chalitza the whole procedure. And we don't require the spitting on the face. But if you don't want to take your brother's wife, okay, maybe it's going to cause too much trouble for your current wife, there's lots of reasons someone don't want to do this, then what you can do is you can do the chalitza procedure. And this is what usually is done in Judaism today. They do the chalitza if the brother dies, has no sons, you just do chalitza, right? It's very rare that someone actually marries her now. Yeah. And part of the reason is the force of this was so that she's not going to be destitute and they're going to have property, right? They have ancestral properties that the husband was entitled to. Instead of it just going back to other family members, it should go to their offspring. So the offspring actually will have his name. Yeah. Right, Sean says Yabum. Right. That's right. The abstract concept is Yabum. We have a whole tractate in the Talmud I quoted earlier. Yabama, right? Zaken Tom says he tries to seduce also Salome, his niece. Yeah, that's right. That's why he executes John the Baptist, right? He's like lusting after her while she's dancing. Ted says, don't forget, by the way, just so you know, in traditional Judaism, women don't dance in front of men, okay? And so it's kind of interesting when you see like Messianic congregations and the men and women all holding hands and doing their dancing and stuff, or the women are doing the dance troupe in front of the men, or you take it as you will, it's not really acceptable because of the way people are. I mean, people are people, and guys are definitely guys, and so, so anyway. And so of course she's dancing, and it's probably like sexual dancing. He's like, I'll give you half my kingdom, he's pervert. And and so he's got to kill a prophet then. Yeah, Ted, thanks for reminding everyone. Yeah, guys, please remember to click thumbs up. That can help us with the YouTube algorithm, okay? Keep the channel growing, right? I like the pace we're going at, Baruch Hashem. Let's, maybe he'll even accelerate according to his will. All right. Verse 18. Sean says, yeah, it's covetousness. That's right. Okay. V'isha el achotah lo tikach. We'll stop there. Now, a woman, and the Hebrew text is kind of strange. That's why I have it highlighted to kind of help you pick it apart. It says a woman, literally, unto achotah, her sister. Lo tikach, you shall not lakach, shall not take. So you shall not marry. So let me talk about that just for a second. So according to Davidson Intro to Hebrew Grammar with Hebrew Syntax, el in this context means something like in addition to. All right, so it apparently has this other nuance that can be used just rarely. So a woman in addition to her sister. So you're already married. You want to take another wife. You think, hey, my wife is great. Let me have her sister too, right? Not allowed. You're not allowed to do that. And this is what I was mentioning before. The sages concur that taking a woman's sister as an additional wife is not lawful in her lifetime. If she dies, then he may marry her sister, right? Ibn Ezra claims that this prohibition to not take sisters together as wives at the same time only applies to the Holy Land. Oops, I'm blocking my notes, sorry. Right? And so, of course, they're basing this off looking at what happened with Yaakov Avinu, right? Because Yaakov married two women, but it was outside the Holy Land when he married them, right? And so, even though we know the Torah, there's kind of this I don't know, it's kind of like a cognitive dissonance in our tradition that did people know about the Torah or did they not, right? So sometimes it's convenient to say, oh, they knew about the Torah, they studied. Other times, oh, they didn't have the Torah yet, right? You can say each thing, right? And so this is one of those times where they're assuming that they knew about at least this aspect of the Torah, even though it wasn't given yet. But because he didn't live in the land yet, it was okay, right? That's why Ibn Ezra is making this claim, all right? The Rambam agrees with him. The Rambam's the one who actually spells out why. He goes and explains, well, because look, he's over there, he's not in Israel, right, when he marries them, right? And he's a tzaddik, and so we understand that's okay if you're not in Israel, right? So anybody out there contemplating, should I marry my wife's sister? Not if you want to live in Israel, not if you live in Israel. According to the Rambam and Ibn Ezra. Abarbanel does not agree. He's like, no, you guys are wrong. You guys are wrong. Can't ever marry sisters unless one's dead. Okay. Litzroh legalot ervatah aleha bechayeha. Okay. Litzroh. So why? The text gives us why. So this is a mitzvah. This is a commandment. This is not a chok or chukah. It's not something that we don't know the reason. We're given the reason. Why don't you marry sisters? Litzroh, to make one etzorer. Etzorer is an adversary, right? To make one hostile. Legalot, in uncovering ervatah, her nakedness. Aleha, with her, bechayeha, in her life. Okay, verse 19. Ve'el isha benidat tum atah. Lo tichav legalot ervatah. Ve'el isha, and if we're interpreting el the same way, I should have colorized it. Now, we can say unto. Now, unto a woman, in nidat, in the nida, the blood flow of tumata, of her uncleanness, meaning her period, her menses. Lo tikrav, you shall not approach. Legalot, to uncover ervata, her nakedness. Verse 20. Ve'leishet amitecha lo titen shechoftecha lezara letomava. Okay. Ve'el eshet amitecha, and unto the wife of your fellow, your kin, lo titen, you shall not permit. It's from Natan, right? Natan? Oh, I'm in the way, hold on. Natan? But it's like permit. Shechof techa, your sleep, you're laying down with, lezara, for seed. Letoma ba, to be polluted, ba, with her. Okay? Brendan says, I take it you're thinking about David? Oh, no. Okay, Tom asked the question first. Sorry. Oh, Brendan says, so it's okay for women to watch the men dance? Yeah, men aren't sexy. Let's just be honest about things. Especially men who are dressed conservatively. What's sexy about a man? It's like goofy men dancing. Can men even really dance at all? Unless they're fagelas. Only the fagelas can dance. So yeah, traditionally, yeah, it's okay. I don't think we have to be that strict, but I think it's probably a good idea to consider in wherever your congregation, to consider the idea of men and women maybe not touching. I think this is a nice idea. We don't put this on our own kahal. Maybe it's out there as a wise practice that some people can benefit from. Let's see. Zaken Tom says, Rabbi, how about Amnon? He raped his half sister Tamar. A horrible chapter. I mean, how many sins can you commit in one day, right? I mean, he lied to his father, right, about being sick. He committed the act of rape, which is a death penalty offense. Okay, this isn't go to prison for 10 years like in the United States, Death penalty. Why do you think we got so many rapists? Because we don't kill them. A rapist is to be killed. That's justice. He takes something away from the woman that never can be regained. So we need to start killing these guys, So, or at least castrating. Castration might be okay. Chemical castration. Maybe the woman could decide which one, the victim. And then third, he stole, right? He stole. Fourth, he violated the command to be with his sister, right? The Tamar even seems to think that David would be okay, which makes me think she didn't know the law very well, you know. Yeah. Even they had different mothers. Still, that's his half sister, right? Brendan laughing. Okay. Alan says close kin share common recessive, usually ugly genes. Marrying them makes the genes dominant that are expressed at birth. Interesting. Thanks for that, Alan. Brenda says shalom. Oh, okay, shalom, Alfred. Thanks for being here, Achi. You can watch the rest later, huh? I'll leave it up for a couple days. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to change slides. Were we done with that slide? Oh, yeah, we were done. Okay, good. All right, we're making okay time. There's 30 verses today, so it's longer than last week's Torah portion, but we can still do it. Verse 21. Omizacha lo titen lehavir la molech. Yuch. Velo techalel et shem Elohecha ani Adonai. Okay. Umi za'acha, and from the zera of you. So from your seed can also mean offspring, right? So this could be literal seed, meaning like sperm, okay? Or it can mean children. Interestingly, Targum Yonatan understands it more literally as seed, meaning sperm, and interprets this as a command against sleeping with Gentile or pagan women, which could impregnate them, resulting in offspring performing avodah zarah, strange worship, right? Illegal worship. That's in Targum Yonatan, Vayikra 18:21. Lo titen, I think here it's children, right? But okay, you shall not natan, you shall not give or prescribe lehavir. The root is avar. We had this as a Hebrew word of the day recently, to cross over, right? Or to go through, right? To go through. And this is the causative, the hefil, so to cause, so to bring over, to move across la molech, to molech. So on this crossing over, I want to comment that Rashi explains the ritual was for a child given over to Molech, this evil god, to cross over between two piers of fire, from father to a pagan priest, right? So he's walking through these flames, right? That was the ritual. I mean, who knows? I mean, a lot of scholars think it was actually burning the children, right? Kind of like something akin with abortion, right? Killing the child to get favor from Molech. But Rashi's opinion was that they didn't actually kill the children. It was part of the ceremony. They had the fire to walk between the fire. They had two piers of fire. The kid would walk between, and the priest, it's called the Komer Molech, or a Komer La Molech, a priest of Molech. We don't call pagan priests Kohens, by the way, okay? This is only for our people. Kohen is only for the children of Israel. In biblical Hebrew, when you refer to another priest, like from another religion, that's a Komer, okay? It's a derisive term. It's funny because in modern Hebrew, that's how you call a Roman Catholic priest. He's a Komer. So if you're used to reading biblical Hebrew, and some priests, they know biblical Hebrew, right? You know, so they don't like it. They don't like to be called Komers because they know what that means. They know but that you can't see your Kohen. Kohen means something else. You know, so. Brenda says he humiliated Tamar the way he put out of the room among the servants. Everyone knew. Yeah, what a wicked guy. Whenever I read through that in the yearly reading, I'm always glad when Avshalom kills his ass. You know, it's like, I mean, that's one of the moments where Avshalom shined, right? He was correct. He was correct. What a wicked, evil kid. I mean, part of the, you know, it's kind of funny. Look, look, I want to speak to those of you who are in privation, right? Anybody watching this video, you're kind of struggling in life, and maybe you feel like sometimes you can't give your children what you want to give them, right? And maybe you feel a bit guilty about that, and maybe you feel, like, you're not being a good parent or whatever because you don't have the funds to give them what you want. Look, there is a danger to wealth. There's a danger to wealth. It's hard to see the blessings in struggling sometimes. But children who grow up wealthy, they don't have it easy either. And this, any of you kids watching this too, who you don't have the stuff, you can't get the toys you want or whatever, or the clothes you want, or you can't go to the mall, but maybe once every couple months or something. Think about it. You might think it stinks now, but very often wealthy children, very often become bad, rebellious. They get bored. There's high suicide rates in the States. In the States, most people who kill themselves are wealthy kids. Did you know that? Those are the statistics. It seems, Ben Shapiro puts it this way. It seems that suicide is white privilege, but he means of the wealthy whites, the wealthy whites and Asians, the wealthy, those who grow up wealthy, haven't ever known suffering. There's something about having to go through some suffering, some privation, that it gives you some perspective maybe. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, but just be encouraged. Be encouraged, because this might even be part of what Yeshua is talking about the poor, right? Blessed are the poor, and they will inherit the earth, right? I mean, if you die in sin, you ain't inheriting nothing, right? Someone who dies a rebel to the Lord, we know that person's going in the lake of fire. So what's better, to live eternally, and to appreciate what God has given, to appreciate every little thing, Or so don't beat yourselves up, parents. If you can't provide the way you want to provide for your kids, but you feed them at least, and you keep them safe, and they have clothes on them, then you never know. Even Jordan Peterson talks about this, that it seems like a bit of privation is very beneficial for children. Can you imagine? So if you're wealthy and you're hearing this, and you don't have kids yet, or your kids are real little, you might consider not spoiling them. You might consider don't tell them about all the money you have. Put some of it aside and learn to say no. No. Just because a little bit of privation, really, just separate from the religious sphere, just the psychological sphere, can be very useful. And look, when we talk about Tamar being raped by her brother, I see that little punk as just a spoiled rich ass. Grew up wealthy. It's kind of funny, like, I used to do drama in high school, right? I really enjoyed drama. And my mother taught me how to do it. I wanted to be an actor for a while. She talked me out of it because, But I remember, like, in drama, like, some of the kids couldn't cry. And I couldn't understand why they couldn't cry. And years later, I realized, it was the rich kids. The rich kids, because they don't know anything about life. They can't cry. And you'll see this. Modern actors, big multi-million-dollar films, the person's like, there's no tears. It's like, the person doesn't really know what life is. So look, you can have a richer life, having privation. My rabbi in Boston said to me one time, I was talking about some stuff, and he said, suffering in life, the people who suffer, or have had some suffering, have the deepest personalities, the deepest characters, it seems, right? And I think, by the way, look, if you happen to be from a wealthy home, and you walk in the ways of the Lord. And, look, there were, David had kids that were good, okay? So we're not saying that this is like a recipe that's for disaster. I'm just trying to comfort those who don't have privilege, right? That it can be, actually, the Lord can make it all into a blessing, right? So. Yeah, Brennan says, to know God's mercies are new every morning. Yeah, exactly. To know, hey, the electric's still on, even though we were 10 days late. Hallelujah. The landlord didn't get ticked, even though you're late on the rent or whatever, You really learn to appreciate, right? I mean, you hold on to his miracles. Please, God, help us find the money for whatever, and the kids see that too. And then they see Hashem answering, So there's a dynamic there. So take heart, okay, if that's your situation. At least you're not raising an Amnon, who's going to rape his sister. I mean, does it get more evil than raping your sister? And then, and she's a virgin, right? He raped a virgin, and then he called her a whore, and he kicks her out. I'm so glad. I love it when Absalom kills him. Just love it. It's so great. All right. So you can also find this teaching that Rashi talks about. It's also in the Talmud in Sanhedrin 64, backside of the page. La Molech, to Molech. Now I just want everybody to see that Molech, it's related to the word Melech. You see, Molech is one who malachs. It's an active participle, right? So Molech is like a reigner, right? A reigner, one who reigns, the reigner, right? They don't give themselves humble names, these false gods. Melech is king, Molech is that false god. As such, the sages suggest it is a term for anything one may set on a throne. So that's the Talmud again, Sanhedrin, but next page, 64a. Also, Ibn Ezra, however, while referencing this point, rejects it as likely the name of a foreign abomination only. Right? So we have a machloket, a disagreement. Yeah, one or more, and I agree, Sean. V'lo techalel, and you shall not pollute or defame or make ordinary et shem Elohecha, the name of your God. Ani Adonai, I am Adonai. Selah. Literally, shame, name, one of many biblical indicators that the name of God is usually not to be taken literally, okay? I mean, we just recently had someone fairly knowledgeable post about this in the chat, right? In our Telegram chat. And, like being in favor of pronouncing the name. And it always surprises me when I see like other leaders and stuff say this kind of thing, but, I'm not judging anybody. It's a lack of understanding of Hebrew is really what it is, which is why the outgrowth from Simchat Hashem, why we call the internet portion of it Hebrew literacy, right? Because the idea is, I really believe Hebrew literacy is what's a must, right? Think about the next generation. You guys are all wrestling with Hebrew and you're getting to the next level. Your kids, no one is going to be able to trick them. And they're not going to be able to trick you either. When you know the Hebrew and someone says some nonsense or says it's okay to just say the name of God all willy-nilly, and they quote some verses about his fame being around the earth. See, look, it says his name. It doesn't just mean name. I would even say most of the time it means reputation, fame, authority, and sometimes it's literal name. When you see that a word in Hebrew has many meanings, which most of them do, it does not mean it means all those things every time it's used, okay? It means you have to select the right one that it means in that verse, all right? Ted says, still practiced today, it's true. Yeah. Well, the spirit of Molech, this is abortion. I mean, this is abortion. And this is, shout out to my congregants here in the Philippines, we always talk about Pinoy pride, right? Like pride in the Philippines, and is it justified or not justified? There is something that you can be proud about, guys. The Filipinos, you should all be very proud that abortion is illegal here in every region. It's illegal. If someone wants to get an abortion, they have to break the law. And it's and if they want to get an abortion, they're ashamed of it. They're not going to be talking about it to people. None of this stuff like in America where Democrats are yelling about their abortion. Oh, I'm so proud of my abortion. Molech! It's totally Molech. It's the same spirit feeding children to this demon so that lives could be blessed somehow. So if you want to be proud, Filipino listeners, if you want to be proud of something, don't be proud of beauty contests that you win the Miss World, or that there's like the contestant from Australia has a grandparent from Philippines or something. No. Be proud that you still have the unborn are still protected here. That they're not slaughtered like they are in the United States and in Europe and in all these first world nations that are so rich. Because again, look what's happening. Without the privation, without clinging to God, needing God, people, they start to do whatever they think is right, Yeah, Sean says the loud and proud crap. Exactly. Yes, Ted says Hashem blesses Philippines. May he bless the Philippines. Amen. And may it never be legal here. Every once in a while you get some voices, oh, but what about rape? Oh, but what about incest? Okay, look, like Ben Shapiro points out, this is less than 1% of the instances. It's very rare that abortion is about a rape. It's very rare, or very rare that it's about, and even if it is, it's the baby's fault. Like, what did the baby do? It's still a human. It's a human being. That's a person. And abortion procedures actually are very painful even. So it's not even humane. When people put down a dog, they use a very nice, peaceful injection where the animal just goes to sleep. You know how they abort babies? It ain't peaceful. They rip the thing apart in utero. They rip off the limb. I won't get into it too much. I'm sorry. I know it's still Shabbat in many places, but just wicked Molech spirit. And there's just no way to justify this. Yeah, rape is terrible, and so is killing babies, But usually what happens when someone's trying to trick you And guys, be ready with this argument here in the Philippines. When someone's, because you hear these voices, some politicians, they want to make it legal. They want to be like the West. They want to be convinced to be like Babylon, like America, who I think is Babylon today. They want to be like Babylon. Well, specifically Hollywood, exporting that spirit of Babylon. Maybe not all of America yet, right? But we're going there. And they'll say, well, what about rape? What you can do is you can say to them, okay, if I agree that it's okay for rape, will you agree that it's not okay for every single other case? Let's before we talk about this, or are you just using this as a trick to try to get people over to abortion is great for everybody, right? And usually it's the trick. They will not agree that it should be illegal for everybody except the rape case, right? So you can save yourself countless hours of debating with someone who is not honest. Alan says, Hebrews 5, 8 through 9, although he was a son, Yeshua learned obedience by the things that he suffered. Ooh, even the Son of God suffered. I shared with you guys a couple parshot back. Have you heard all the nonsense that Yeshua was rich because his father's a carpenter, and so they had so much money, and look at the garment he had. They didn't want to tear it open, so they cast lots for it. It's a rich man's garment. Okay, that might be true about the garment. Maybe somebody gave him a nice garment, right? But as far as like being from a rich family or something, we proved again that was not true recently when we showed that what was the offering that was brought to the temple by Miriam and Yosef. What did they bring? They brought doves. They didn't bring a bovid, they brought doves. Doves was for the poor person. So if they're so rich from his carpentry career, why are they bringing doves, man? So you can pretty much prove that all that name it and claim it nonsense and prosperity preaching is just falls flat on its face when people know the Torah, right? You know the Torah, you can't be tricked. Yeah, amen. Okay. Verse 22. Ve'etzacha lo tishkav mishkavei isha to'iva hi. Okay, now look, we have a special emphasis again. We have the et, right? The verb is over here. The et comes first, so that's emphasis. It's like Hashem is shouting, "Ve'et zachar lo tishkav mishkavei isha." Okay. To'evahi. Okay, hold on. Now a male you shall not lay down mishkavei isha. In the okay. A male. Lo tishkav, you shall not lay down mishkavei isha, as the laying downs of with a woman. Okay, so with a male is really what they're saying, not the direct object. I was wrong about that. It's with a male. Et and et, they look the same, right? So context. So with a male you shall not lay down. So a male shall not lay down with a male as he lays down with a woman. To'eva he. It is an abomination. And this is, we had a little machloket in the men's chat a while back, where one of the other teachers was trying to say, oh, well, but Hebrew, it oftentimes takes the word that's masculine and it can mean girls too, No, I'm sorry. The level of Hebrew isn't quite there yet. Okay, that happens with Adam, because that can mean human being, right? That happens with Adam, and it happens with plurals. Like, so Banim can mean sons or it can mean children, depending on context, right? Bnei Israel, that's the children of Israel, not the sons. We don't exclude the daughters, right? But if you talk about the Bnei Yaakov, and you talk there, you're saying the number of them, then we know it's the sons of Jacob, okay? But Zachar, this means a dangler, okay? This is someone who dangles, and it's for animals too. So when God, he says, I want it to be a male sacrifice, this is the word he uses. This never ever means female. This translates exactly as male, okay? And male doesn't mean female. The Zachar doesn't, okay? Nekeva means female. That's the opposite of this word, which really means it's a similar word for the word we have for cave. Okay, so I don't want to get into it, but it doesn't take much imagination to understand why that means female. Okay, dangler versus cave. Okay, that's it. Okay, there's no way out of this. So this commandment here, this prohibition, and I don't want to get too controversial, but this is prohibiting male homosexuality. That's what this verse prohibits. If you want to prohibit female homosexuality, you got to find it somewhere else in the Torah, and I've never seen it anywhere else in the Torah, okay? So just from a linguistic perspective, you don't get there. So usually the way that it happens in Judaism is in a place in the Talmud, it says that this was the way of Egypt, that apparently lesbianism was very popular in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. And since we're not supposed to, we had in this Torah portion, the K'maAseh Mitzrayim, we're not supposed to do like the works of Egypt, therefore no lesbianism. The problem is, as an amateur person in Middle Egyptian, who used to study Egyptian language quite a bit, the hieroglyphs, I've never come across a text that talks about lesbianism at all in ancient Egypt. So if it's so popular, how come we don't have any evidence of this, right? So I think that's just a tradition that was passed down where the rabbi was wrong. Okay, so I will refuse to prohibit that simply because I don't see it. The problem with it is there is another commandment. A woman can't dress like a man, right? So if someone does do this practice, she can't dress like a man. And we have the command, Piru Urevu, you shall be fruitful and multiply. Well, that doesn't work if you don't have a husband. Okay, so really it seems there's just a very, before you all freak out, oh my gosh, is he saying that it's okay to, not really. What I'm saying is there's a very narrow slice. I think in a polygamous society, sometimes you would have a case where a man might marry 100 women, right? And then there's this problem where a man, he would put away a wife, which means he wouldn't divorce her. Because to divorce her, the ketubah, the marriage contract, he'd have to pay a lot in alimony, right, in the Jewish law. And so instead, he just never sleeps with her anymore. He just treated her, he wouldn't see her anymore. And so for decades, she's alone, right? This practice, the rich guy got 100 wives. He doesn't like one of them or two of them. That's it. He doesn't want to pay the fee. So it's cheaper to support them, let them have their little apartment or whatever, and that's it. And so I think, I was trying to understand this. Why isn't it prohibited, right? Why is it allowed in the Torah? I think it's because that specific situation. So it's not really permitting so-called lesbianism, but it would be permitting female bisexuality when the woman is married, right? Because then she's not violating Peru Urevu, be fruitful and multiply. It's not her fault the husband is an evil jerk who put her away instead of divorcing her, so she can't remarry. She's being forced into adultery if she wants to have another man. So anyway, again, we don't take values from a church, we don't take values from a society or traditions from the Gentiles. We look at what the Torah says itself. And so this verse prohibits male homosexuality. There's one in the New Testament that seems to be talking about Roman orgies, that people sometimes try to make that on women, but it's really weird because it mentions men on men, and then it just says, and women did perverse things that were unnatural, right? It doesn't say woman on woman. So even there we don't have the prohibition. So, we talk about controversial stuff here. So anyway, I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments. Just prove it. Prove it. This is our source of morality. This is our source of authority, not what you heard in church, okay? This is where it comes from. If the text prohibits it, prohibit it. And we can't do mental gymnastics to get out of it, okay? But you show me in the text, why don't we ever have it? I mean, you're going to see the Torah portion today, we've got it's very explicit. A woman shall not get on all fours in front of an animal. I mean, really, it had to tell us that? But it's not going to tell us a woman can't sleep with a woman? See, so someone in the chat, I think it was Jeremy, I don't think of mine, in the men's debate chat said he thinks it's because it wasn't really sex. It's not considered sex. So, okay, I want to get off this topic. It's kind of controversial, but this is an exercise. I want to challenge all of you to think about it. What does the text actually say? What does the Torah actually say? Don't take your mental baggage from church with you. What does the Torah actually say is prohibited? Sean says it's interesting that the word to'eva is used. This word is connected with foreign gods. Oh yeah, that's right. Abomination, right? We call the foreign gods abomination. Also with lobster. Things that you eat that are not kosher are also called to'eva. Sean says it's likely a way there was a law in Canaanite laws because, in fact, in certain temples, men and women could change sex. Whoa! Interesting. Dr. Ur says, if male homosexuality is prohibited, could we invoke kol vachomer in the case of female homosexuality? That's a great argument, Doc. I've thought about that before. And the reason I think we can't use it here is because female on female would be the kol. That would be the lighter one, you see? We're already talking the heavy one. Because think about it. You couldn't even have feces in the camp of Israel. That had to be taken outside the camp because Lord your God walks around. Well, what happens in male sex? There's feces involved. I'm sorry. I don't mean to get graphic, right? So from the kol vachomer, that's already the chomer. We don't say chomer vakal. We say kal vachomer. So this is already making the chomer case. You can't then derive a more specific lighter case from it. The logic works the other way. You see? Okay. If this were the lighter case, so if it prohibited female sex, then your argument would hold up. then certainly not male sex, because there's poo-poo involved, right? So you can't even have that in the camp, right? So already there's that's the direction of the flow of logic. We don't go the other way. Hope that answers. It's a good question. Yeah, I've thought of that before. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Feel free if you want to talk about this some more. That's fine. But I might not engage in interest of time just now because, oh my gosh, it's almost 7. We might have to skip the haftarah. Look, it's a long Torah portion today. I hope we had fun. I hope we learned some stuff. That's the main thing. We don't always have to. I don't want to legalistically say we have to cover the haftarah and everything. We don't have the mitzvah for this, right? Okay, verse 23. The existence of the haftarah. You know why it exists? We have the haftarah because the Torah was illegal under the Syrian Greek criminal Antiochus Epiphanes. Torah study was illegal, so we studied haftarah. Right, so there's not a mitzvah. You don't have to study the haftarah. Verse 23. Uv'chol behema lo titen shechoftecha letoma va. Okay. Now, with any kind of animal, lo titen, you shall not permit shechoftecha. You're laying down letoma va to do an impurity with it or in it. Really gross. In the Mishnah, Avodah Zarah, unauthorized worship, even in this regard, the sages were concerned. You know what they're concerned about? You'll be surprised. Cruelty to animals. Raping an animal is cruel to the animal, other than just being disgusting, right? So they warned that Jews could not leave cattle in Gentile inns so the cattle won't be abused. Interesting, the Mishnah doesn't allow us to leave our animals in a Gentile barn, for example, or a Gentile inn. Like, sometimes they'd have people are traveling and they have their animals, and then they stay in the hotel, right? Because the drunken Gentiles might come down and rape your animal, right? And that's a cruelty to your animal, right? So we weren't permitted to trust the Gentiles with that because they're so sex crazed. Okay? Veisha lo ta'amod lifnei behemah leviva tevelhu. And a woman, lo ta'amot, shall not stand lifnei, before vehema, a beast, leriva, on all fours, meaning she's on her knees. Tevelhu, confusion it is. Now, interesting, I found in this book, Near Eastern texts relating to the Old Testament, that this is exactly what the goddess Ishtar does in the Epic of Gilgamesh, as she sleeps with a, quote, dappled shepherd bird, a lion, perfect in strength, and a stallion, famed in battle. So their goddess, she gets down on all fours. And anyway, we'll just leave it there, which is interesting that Shaon, maybe this is the Holy Spirit moving, shared about Toivah, right? These are Toivahs, and also worshiping other gods is Toivah, etc., etc. Brenda says, wow. By the way, please, look, I hope nobody's angry about my interpretation of the verse. I'm just telling you what it says in Hebrew, okay? You can extrapolate, you can understand you can understand the Apostle Paul's verses that people oftentimes seem to think prohibits female homosexuality. You can understand that way if you like. I'm just saying I don't, because we have the terms in the Greek don't seem to really go that way, right? But I could be wrong, I could be wrong, and certainly it's not ideal for a woman to have this lifestyle. Ideal is to have kids. I mean, that's one thing that I'm very sad for with lesbians, is that they don't have children, right? They don't have that joy of children in their life, right? I think that's, besides being a command, it's a very, very sad. It should not be a permanent state for a person to be in, right? Good, Ben's not offended. And also, a lot of times there's abuse that leads to this, and, there's just, or a lot of times if you talk to a lesbian, I've talked to many, you talk to a lesbian, a lot of times what happened was she had a bad boyfriend that beat her, or he broke her heart, or, it's not like this I was born this way sort of thing, right? That people are claiming today. A lot of times it's really psychological trauma that led to that, So there can be a way out as well. They can come back, Verse 24. Should I? Okay. We don't have so much more. I can't. I'm having a reading problem for some reason. Okay. You shall not defile yourselves, become unclean, B'chol ele, with any of these. Ki v'chol ele nitmeu hagoyim, for with all of these things, the Gentiles, the nations, have impurified themselves. Asher ani mishaleach mipnechem, whom I am removing or sending out, casting out from before you, like as we go into Israel. Verse 25. V'titma ha'aretz v'yevkod avona aleha v'taki ha'aretz et yosheveha. Okay. And so the land became impure. Va'efkod avona aleha, and I have visited its iniquity aleha, upon it. V'taki ha'aretz, so the land has takai, has vomited out et yosheveha, her inhabitants. Many today clamor about the right of privacy, in the States at least, regarding sexual acts, when in reality such private sins affect the fate of all the people living in such tolerant societies. So you can't think that, hey, stuff's happening over in San Francisco, we're going to be fine over in Utah or whatever. No. The land can vomit out people, The land can bring down an entire nation, And some would say maybe it's just the land of Israel. I don't know. The sages talk about the love that God has for the land. So maybe. But that's there. And we have one more slide to finish off our Torah portion. Oh, two more. Okay, I'm going to read through quickly. I'm sorry, because it's almost 7. Maybe I blabbed too much today. ושמרתם אתם את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי ולא תעשו מכל התועבות האלה. So you shall safeguard, you yourselves, my statutes and my judgments or regulations, and you shall not do from any of these abominations. It's interesting how modern day leftists are more concerned about greenhouse gases than they are of what actually pollutes the land. What actually pollutes the land in a very dangerous way are these various abominations that most of the people that are all hyper green about global warming and stuff are actually also very, very permissive sexually. It's no accident that you'll find the same group with those ideas, and often very anti-Israel and anti the God of Israel. Ha'ezrach v'hager hagar b'tochachem, the native-born and the foreigner who sojourns in your midst. Verse 27. Ki et kol ha'to'evot ha'el asu anshei ha'aretz asher lifnechem v'titma ha'aretz. So, or because all of these abominations, the men of the earth, the people of the earth, they did. It's kind of interesting it uses anshei ha'aretz because it's saying like the important people, right? The sages say oftentimes when you have enosh versus ish, that this can be talking about like a man of import, right? A person of import. But it also can just be people, right? The people of the land, asher lifnechem, who were before you. V'titma ha'aretz, and they polluted the land. Verse 28. V'lo ta'ki ha'aretz etchem, v'tama achem ota, kasher ka'aet hagoy asher lifnechem. V'lo ta'ki, so that will not vomit out ha'aretz, the land, etchem y'all, in your impurities with it, or pardon me, when you impurify it, according to how it vomited out the goy asher lifnechem, who were before you. The Hebrew is singular here, but the Septuagint renders tus ethnesin, the nations, instead of goy, the nation, right? Which seems to fit better, right? Because there are different nations in the land. Though I have chosen to agree with Septuagint here, this is a note from my book. The reader should bear in mind that the Masorah states the nation. Okay. And finally, the end of our Torah portion. Verse 29, Ki kol asher ya'aseh mikol ha'to'evot ha'ele v'nichretu ha'nefashot ha'osot mikerev amim. So, anyone who does from these abominations, or any of these abominations, or some of them you could interpret that, v'nichretu ha'nefashot ha'osot, shall be cut off the souls or the lives who do it, mikerev, from the midst amam, of their people. Verse 30, the last verse in the Torah portion. Maybe we'll slow it down and sing this one. Ushamartem et mishmarti levioti asot mechukot hato'evot asher na'asuhu לפניכם, ולא תטמאו בהם. אני Adonai Elohechem. Ushmartem, so you shall safeguard et mishmarti. Mishmarti, it looks like my watches, right? We have the same, not watches, but like the night watches, we use the same word. But this can be like my prohibitions. Rashi considers this as an admonishment for the court, and Alshich sees it as a directive to make a fence, to ensure we do not even do a small amount of the abominations. Because up here, verse 29, this can be interpreted, anyone who does some of these abominations or any of these abominations, you can interpret that way. It doesn't mean like you got to do them all. Just do some of it. The land will vomit us out. So it affects your neighbor, not just yourself. Over there in America, when Hollywood's putting out all this garbage and polluting the world and making everybody think all this stuff's okay and people trying to trans the kids and all that stuff, it doesn't just affect the wicked ones who are on board with it. It affects everybody. Everybody gets affected by this. And it's a danger. Much more than global warming. Levilti asot mechukot. So that they shall not do from the manners, literally the statutes, hatoevot, of the abominations asher asu, which were done lifnechem, before you all. Velo titamu, so that you shall not pollute yourselves bahem, in them, or with them. Ani Adonai Elohechem. And here we have a beautiful inclusio with how we started the Torah portion with that Selah. Like, think about it. Be holy because I am holy. The section begins with that affirmation and it ends with it. I am Hashem, your God. Shavua Tov, Alfred, thanks for staying. Brenda says, or a father that sexually abused her. Yeah, horrible. Yeah, you're very wicked. Okay, so look, I don't think we're going to do the haftarah. I don't think we have time. Man, I had a bunch from Revelation I was going to share too, but let me see what I can. If you want to read it, Jeremiah 10, 2 through 12, it's talking about like don't take a tree and decorate it, and these idiots do all this stuff with silver and gold and blah blah blah, and their idols are like scarecrows in a cucumber field. I love that line. So the prophets are so great when they smack people in the face. Shavua Tov, Alfred. But there's none like you, O Lord. You are great, and your name is great in might. Who would not fear you, O King of nations? I will just read to you from Revelation 18, and you process it. This will take about 5 minutes, and we'll be done, okay? I won't go into all the detail I was thinking about. We'll just read it together, okay? Revelation 18. We did Leviticus 18. Now we're in Revelation 18. Last time we talked about Revelation 17. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority. And the earth was made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice, Fallen! Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean, detestable beast. Interesting, if you think it doesn't matter about unclean animals. For all nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. Sound like anybody? Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. For her sins are heaped high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Pay her back as she herself has paid back others, and repay her double for her deeds. Mix a double portion for her in the cup she mixed, as she glorified herself and lived in luxury. So give her a like measure of torment and mourning, since in her heart she says, I sit as a queen, I'm no widow, a mourning I shall never see. Mourning meaning like sadness, not like the morning and the dawn. For this reason her plagues will come in a single day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire, for mighty is Adonai Elohim who has judged her. And the kings of the earth who committed sexual immorality and lived in luxury with her will weep and wail over her when they see the smoke of her burning. They will stand far off. Remember, this goes into Hebrew, merachok. And merachok we learned from the Mechilta the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. When you see this, there's a remez in the text, meaning the Holy Spirit is involved. So they will stand from afar in fear of her torment and say, Alas! Oya! Oya! You great city! You mighty city! Babylon. So it's a city, okay? It's a city. For in a single hour your judgment has come. Do you know which city in the earth has more ethnic Jews in it than any city outside of Israel? New York City. New York City. Come out of her, my people. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her, since no one buys their cargo anymore. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of articles of ivory, all kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, slaves, that is, human souls. The text specifies that necessarily means slaves. Now this is interesting. Basically, this, I believe, is a merism. It's listing almost anything the prophet could think of. This means everything. Do you know where the world's largest stock exchange is? The place where more people in the world, more companies are traded every single day than any place in the world? The New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange. For the fruit of which your soul longed has gone from you, and all your delicacies and your splendors are lost to you, never to be found again. If you can't find it there, you can't find it anywhere. New York, New York. The merchants of these wares. By the way, the city where partial birth abortion is legal. You can kill a baby as it's being born. The merchants of these wares who gain wealth from afar will stand far off in fear of her torment, weeping and mourning aloud. That's the merchants, right? Alas, alas. For the great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, with jewels, and with pearls, with all kinds of stock options. For in a single hour, all this wealth has been laid waste. You know, when the Great Depression happened in America, it's because the New York Stock Exchange had a fall. Devastated the entire country. Imagine if the city gets destroyed in an instant. And all shipmasters and seafaring men, sailors, and all those whose trade is on the sea, stood merachok, from afar off. The Holy Spirit is involved in this action. And cried out as they saw the smoke of her burning. So there's fire, there's something of fire. What city was like the great city? So many Americans who've been to New York talk about there's no city like it, right? The New Yorkers, they call it the greatest city on earth. My parents are from New York, right? So I heard the propaganda. And they threw dust on their heads. And as they wept and mourned, crying out, by the way, my parents weren't saying it's great. I'm just saying I've heard these things. Alas, alas, for the great city where all who had ships at sea grew rich by her wealth. For in a single hour she has been laid waste. We are living in a time when that technology is available. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you saints and apostles and prophets, for God has given judgment for you against her. I read a book several years ago by a secular Jewish man who he decided, Jacob something, I can't remember the name, he decided to experiment with reading the Bible in a year and living by the way the Bible says to live. Right? So he ends up, he's got a cane and a robe, and he's on the subway in New York, but things didn't get bad until he started reading a Bible. When he starts reading a Bible on the subway, he said he never realized what a secular city it was. The glares he would get from people, they'd be looking at him with disgust. He could have had a Porto mag and no problem, but because he has a Bible. In fact, when he bought the Bible from a Christian bookstore, and the guy talked to him, well, where are you going to read this? And he said, on the subway. The guy recommended instead a magazine version of the Bible. It's camouflaged Bible with multi-volumes as magazines. So it looks like you're just reading a magazine because you don't want the wicked New Yorkers to know that you're reading the Bible. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, So will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence and will be found no more. And the sounds of harpists and musicians and flute players and trumpeters will be heard in you no more. And a craftsman of any craft will be found in you no more. And the sound of the mill will be heard in you no more. And the light of a lamp will shine in you no more. It's a total destruction. And the voice of bridegroom and bride will be heard in you no more. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth. Your stock exchange was amazing, right? And all nations were deceived by your sorcery. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all who have been slain on earth. The justice in New York is truly injustice. Recently you had a man, there was a deranged person who had punched an old lady in the face, and been in jail for that a few months before. And this deranged person, he was harassing people saying he's not afraid to die. And so two guys, they held him, right? And one of them's a Marine. He put him in chokehold and the guy died, right? Now New York is prosecuting this man for murder. This is the justice in New York. So I want to talk about Revelation a lot, but we are at 7:12. I went late. Sorry, we started almost on time. And I went late. So let me just give you the lekach and I'll let you guys go. You think of what you will from Revelation. To me, it seems pretty clear. Things are cycling down. We're getting, who knows, it could be the next generation. But watch carefully what is happening in current events. Sexual sin is not to be trifled with, folks. Guard yourself. The temporary pleasure is not worth it to anger God. The things which people from all the nations deeply desire result in destruction. We all should be preparing for cycles of revelation in our lifetimes. We should get plans, evacuation plans. Decide, are you gonna bug in? You're gonna bug out? What are you gonna do when the world economic system collapses? What would happen if a nuclear weapon went off in New York City? It's not just America, it's global collapse. You can see why, I could be wrong about it being New York, but you can see why the world, all the merchants are going to be, oh my gosh, every currency will collapse if the United States currency is gone like that. It will be chaos around the world. Everyone, all the markets will be destroyed. There's not like something that can just come up and you can't just have China taking the place or something. And Israel is very embedded in the NASDAQ even, right? The NASDAQ. Well, the NASDAQ, I think, might be in Chicago. But sorry, I haven't been catching up with the comments, guys. I just have to get through here. I don't want to keep people too long. So, please, mishpacha, keep yourself from sexual sins. Keep yourselves, and also at the same time, be careful not to call what is not sin, sin. The Torah, the Torah, The Torah Hashem, what was it? The Torah Chesed al Shonah, about the righteous woman in Mishlei. The Torah of grace is on her tongue. The Torah is not just like a harsh taskmaster. It also has grace incorporated in it. The things that it doesn't prohibit are just as interesting as what it does prohibit. We have to be very careful not to be legalists imposing what Christian traditions have caused people to impose. It's enough. What Hashem has imposed on us is enough. We don't have to have extra imposition. Now, on a personal level, when we have weakness, we impose extra rules, right? To prevent us from violating the Torah. That's a different thing than saying that something is forbidden that is not forbidding, or forbidding something that is not, or not forbidding something that the Torah does forbid. Okay? So please be aware of it. For the Filipinos, our Kehal here in Simchat Hashem, if you're involved politically or whatever, please vote for senators, vote for congresspeople, all the stuff who are not on the side of allowing abortion. They're not making rumors about offering to Molech here in this nation. Keep it illegal. Keep the nation safe from an absolute judgment of Molech. And please, let's not encourage the Bachla movement, which seems to be so popular and funny here. This is not holiness. Because Hashem says, Ani Adonai Elohechem, I'm Lord your God. All right, let's have the Birchat HaKohanim. Boże, what happened? Sorry. Here. There we go. Yevarechech Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panai v'lecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panai v'lecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shavuot Tov. You guys have a great week ahead. I will catch you. Those of you who are interested, we have our live teaching tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Filipino time, or that's 8:30 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time in the United States. So figure out your own time zone accordingly if you want to be part of our Zoom meeting where we'll go over aspects of this teaching, and we have an open mic, so I can kind of hear from you guys, which is kind of cool as well. Okay? Shalom, shalom. Be well.